If there's one thing I know about women, it's that we are never satisfied with our body. And so much of that has to do with our relationship with food. So here joining me today on another episode of High Ticket Woman is Heather Jamison. Heather is passionate about helping women break free from self-loathing, emotional eating, disordered eating, and that diet after diet cycle that so many of us get into, which often leads, unfortunately, to weight gain, frustration, feeling stuck, and general unwellness. She herself endured years of eating disorders and a dysfunctional relationship with herself and her body. This, combined with pain from relationships and life circumstances, led her to seek help for herself. Her experience then with a mind, body, and spirit approach has led her to find lasting transformation and wholeness. And it's this experience, combined with her training from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, the Clemmer Leadership Program, Ancient Paths, and various life coaches, that has equipped her and given her a passion for helping other women find the freedom to be authentic and to love themselves. Heather has authored a book called Penelope and the Seed. It's a book for young girls and the young girl inside all of us that tells the story of a girl searching for purpose, identity, and self-love. And she's also co-authored a cookbook with her late mother, A Taste from Home. Heather, welcome to the High Ticket Woman.
Thank you so much, Debbie. That was such a wonderful introduction.
You're welcome. It's all true though, right?
It is. I feel
Heather, I feel like this is going to be a topic that every single woman can relate to. I truly, when I say I don't know of any woman not touched by this, I mean it. I really don't know any woman not touched by this. But let's start with your own journey, because I think as is so true for all of us, there's a reason why you got into this.
yeah. Goodness. I mean, the reason is the Lord, obviously. I never set out to become a health coach. I did feel like because of my own struggles, I wanted to help other women, but I didn't know what that would look like. I had no idea. I struggled a lot from the time I was young. I think I started maybe around elementary school, probably 3rd grade was when I started really having a lot of shame about my body and feeling unworthy for whatever reason, feeling fat, to be honest. I was a little chubby.
Is
And
that sort of an internal, like you looked around at other kids your age and felt that, or were there external voices implied or directly putting you down for your weight?
I would say it was both. I
Yeah.
think the external forces were inadvertently affecting me. I don't think they were family members, and I don't think it was their intention to hurt me, but I've always been very intuitive, and I was able to read into what they meant or what they were hinting at, and it made me feel very insecure. And I would you compare yourself with other people, you compare yourself with other girls, and everyone develops at different rates too, and which is why I really wanted my book to start with a young girl and to be my audience to be young women. Again, the young woman in all of us, but I think as a 9-year-old, your body is starting to change, and it's all very new, and I felt very uncomfortable with the process of my body starting to change, and it made me very insecure, and that just set me on a path as I grew older and into junior high, and then you get your period in high school, and from then on, I was on a trajectory towards anorexia, disordered eating, and just really lots of self-hatred is what it came down to, lots of anxiety that revolved around my body and my appearance. And eventually I came to the point in college where I really knew I needed help. I wasn't able to be in social settings anymore. I wasn't able to really have very good relationships or friends because I was so my mindset was so toxic about myself. And when you become that self-focused and self-centered, you can't have relationship with anyone else. On top of that, being riddled with anxiety, I really kind of came to a breaking point where I knew, and my weight was dropping so low. I remember walking one day on campus and thinking, if I don't do something, I'm gonna end up in the hospital because I'm really sick.
Well, I mean, at this point, you must have had other people saying things to you too. And when you go through anorexia, it's visible. Bulimia isn't so visible to everybody, but anorexia is.
I did. And really that I've told this person in recent years what an impact that had on me. I had a family friend that I had grown up with. I helped serve him and his wife in children's church from a very young age, and they always were sort of an aunt and uncle to me. And one day I was visiting from home from college, and he had made a comment to me, and of course, at the time, it really offended me and rubbed me the wrong way. He was just checking in for my well-being, though. He was really worried about me, and he asked if I was okay and if, if I'd been sick or if I needed some help. And because I don't know, the Lord just used the right person. I can't even say why it was him. I know my mom was concerned and probably my sisters were concerned, but it was that, and I know people were asking my mom if I was okay, but for whatever reason, it was this one person the Lord used, and it really stuck with me. I felt like they really genuinely cared about me, and I knew, okay, if that person is noticing, then probably I really do have a problem.
So what did you do? What were the first steps that you took? Because I can't imagine that this wasn't a journey. It wasn't a black and white. One day you're anorexic and the next day you're fine. It doesn't work that way.
No, and the thing that I've learned too is even in the beginning, there's a number of, really intense years, I'll say, just a handful of really dealing with the anorexia and all of that. But then it's been a lifetime ever since. It's just a journey of growing in the Lord, growing in our identity, growing in the purpose of and feeling worthy. That
Yeah.
continues on. That's a daily thing. And initially I knew that it started with my mind. I had to get my mind right because my mind was just racing. I could not stop it. And there's scripture that says, um, be transformed by the power of your mind. And so I really started to get into the word, and I took out all the scriptures that had to do with the mind and with thinking. And I was reading a book by Watchman Nee at the time, who talks about the spirit man. And so beginning to make the connection of how my mind is affecting my spirit was really important for me. And really, I was so bad with my thoughts. All I could do was write these verses on an index card, and as many times a day, I would say them. When I was having a panic attack, when I couldn't think about anything else, I would just say them till eventually I had them memorized. And, you know, it's so true. When we hide God's word in our heart, I'm not saying I'm an expert at it. I'm not, and I forget references all the time, but just having them there and having them on the card and turning to that in my time of need really was so powerful, and I wouldn't have known it would be that powerful. I'd never done this before. I was just trying it. It was just kind of an experiment. I was a college student, and I guess I was engaged, and so the other thing that was helpful was opening up and talking to my fiancé at the time. I also told him everything because when you're like that, you kind of hide and you pretend, and you don't want people to know your thoughts because you're embarrassed by them. You feel shameful that you would even have the thoughts you're having. So I opened up to him and told him the bad thoughts I was having about myself and other people. And he was really supportive in helping me get well. And he was somebody when I was having a panic attack that I could call. So having him as a support system and then turning to the word really, really helped. And I'm saying after after so much time went by of going over those verses, eventually I started to get more peace. Eventually my mind started to calm down. Um, 2 Timothy says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. So I knew, okay, God, your word says you've given me a sound mind. I want that. What does that look like? And I found it through his word, through the truth, really, because when your mind's circulating like that, it's circulating full of lies. It's circulating full of, and I think you can point it at the enemy and say that, oh, these are lies from the enemy. But at the end of the day, I'm responsible for what I'm going to think. I'm responsible for what I'm believing. And I needed to take action. And that's how I took action.
I, I love that you just shared that because I think those of us who are Christian, we can still even then discount the power of God's word, the power, the healing power of God's word. um, to just literally read the scriptures and read them repetitively and believe in them. Um, I want to go back to you were talking about disordered thinking, and your disordered thinking took a really um, severe term in terms of an eating disorder and anorexia. I've worked with so many women who have disordered thinking, and I've even come to realize that to some degree, I have disordered thinking about this too, about food, and it can look in different ways in women. Like, so I know there may be some women listening going, "Well, I'm fine because I didn't have an eating disorder," and yet it pops itself up in different ways. Like for me, my father, my whole life, has been very critical of my mom's weight. My mom is short, and I think she looked fine. I look back on pictures of her when I was growing up. She looked fine, but my dad was always hypercritical of everything she ate, and so her whole life she has yo-yo back and forth in diets. And there have been times when she's gained more and then gone on a serious, restrictive diet and lost it and then gained it back and so on and so forth. This is really unhealthy dynamic between the two of them with food. I have a younger sister who is short also, and she just has a different body type. And so she just tends to carry a little more weight. And I didn't know this until I was an adult, but my dad had her stepping on a scale from a young child. So that has deeply, deeply impacted her relationship with food. I worry about her sometimes. I don't know if she's going to listen to this episode. I worry about her sometimes because she puts herself on very, very strict caloric intake diets, eats one meal a day. There's no way you can get enough calories in one meal. Um, and and then doesn't really ultimately lose the weight that she wants. But recently I've come to look at my own eating habits, and it's interesting. Like for me, this it's more of a subtle thing. When I went through my divorce 6 years ago, I lost 40 some pounds. And and although I am a healthy weight now, some of that has come back on. And the thing is, I know exactly what I need to do to lose it, but I self-sabotage all the time. I will it's like I will tell myself, "You're gonna eat this right now, Debbie, because your weight is actually fine. You look fine. You don't have to lose weight. So you can do this make a different decision tomorrow. You're gonna eat this today." And I've realized that a lot of that goes back to my own childhood and sort of the passive aggressive stuff going on inside of me of I'm not going to be one of these women who's always restricting themselves and being on this yo-yo diet and I'm going to have self-love for my body, and then I wake up the next day and go, why did you do that? You didn't even feel good eating that. Can you speak to some of the ways that we as women have that unhealthy relationship with food that doesn't necessarily translate into an eating disorder, but it's still getting in the way of us being healthy, feeling healthy, and having that healthy relationship with food?
Yes. I have been there too. And it's not uncommon. I remember a movement about 10 years ago or so where it was the body positivity, and that's still going on, which is a good thing. We want to celebrate. There are all different types of body types. We come in all different shapes and sizes. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, it was very, very skinny, big breasts. Like that was the ideal body type, the Barbie body type. And I fell into that trap. So then after having my 4 beautiful children, I gained more weight with my last son. I sort of fell into this movement of, oh, I can eat whatever I want because I'm loving myself. I'm loving myself, so I'm gonna go to Starbucks and treat myself today with this sugary drink, but I'm loving myself. And so I hope the listeners out there know what I'm referring to.
I'm sure they do. I'm related.
Yeah. And so I fell into that trap, and I gained weight with a lot more weight with my last son, wasn't able to lose it. Then we had a stressful move. I gained 25 pounds from that on top of it. And so I got to thinking, well, wait a minute, this isn't, maybe I'm not as healthy in my thoughts as I thought I was, because now I'm just swung the other pendulum here. I'm just eating whatever I want, whenever, and this isn't doing good either. This isn't loving myself. So when we take a body, mind, spirit approach, we have to look at all 3 components of a person. You cannot have lasting transformation with only one of those areas. You have to look at all 3. So we don't want to just look at, okay, what is the person eating? When we're looking at self-love, we have to look at all 3. And if we're wanting to love our bodies, we then when that starts to shift and we can learn that we're worthy and we can learn what God thinks of us, then we start to think of ourselves differently. When that happens, you now have a better foundation for how that plays out in your life. For a lot of us, that plays out in food and our relationship with food. So by addressing our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with God, the manifestation of that practically in our lives, as is evident in our relationship with food for a lot of us. So what that would look like is, okay, so now I'm getting healthier with my relationship with myself and with God. And so now I recognize, okay, going to Starbucks and getting this sugary drink actually isn't loving my body, because it's not nourishing my body with the nutrients that it needs. It's not giving me the right type of fuel for my body. And it's also not honoring myself and the goals I want for myself. So how many
Say it
times
doesn't honor God either, right? Because God says, our bodies are a temple, and so we need to honor that temple. So it's really a form of honor to God when we treat our bodies in the right way, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and that starts with our connection with him. If we don't, and it isn't a legalistic thing. It isn't like, oh, we're a temple, we've got to, no, God tells us this for our own benefit, for our own safety. He loves us regardless, but he knows that if we're eating fast food every day or we're not getting enough sleep, he knows that it's going to affect our bodies. We might get sick, we might get diseases, so it's him being a good father. It's him wanting us to have a long, healthy life so we can make an impact for him in this world. It's all that's safety. Yes, it's from a place of love. And so when we make that shift, because I came from a very religious background, and so I kind of had to walk out of a lot of those religious mindsets too, of God is more strict, less loving,
Harsh, yeah.
harsh.
So, yeah.
Yeah, he cares more about you performing well for him. I had to walk out of a lot of that. When we walk out of that and we can see this is what love looks like actually in a healthy way, we then learn how to live that out. And when we learn to live that out, that's how we learn to, okay, we learn to listen to our body. What does my body really need? And what would it look like to give my body what it needs? I might be craving something really sugary. So then we look at, okay, one, am I having a nutrient deficiency? Could that be going on? Or am I having an emotional need that isn't being met? Most of the time when we're craving things, we're having an emotional need that hasn't been met. And so we're trying to fill it with food. So again, it's learning, okay, and loving myself in this moment doesn't look like eating a bowl of ice cream. Because what happens when we do that is it sets up guilt later, right? If we binge now or we go and eat whatever we want to because we're loving ourselves, then later, does it feel like love? No, like
No,
feels
it does
like
not.
guilt and shame, and it feels horrible. So it's not love to do that.
You know, I totally agree with what you're saying, and I want to circle back around to the body positivity movement because you're so right. I mean, there's a difference between being accepting of the things about our body that we can't change, the genetic things about our body, but that doesn't extend to just taking license to put into our body whatever we want because it feels good in the moment. I think we use this whole body positivity and self-love as an excuse for self-gratification, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's consequences to our decisions, and that's just how God set up the universe. If we're going to smoke, there's consequences to smoking in our physical body, right? It's the same way with food. Whatever we put into our bodies, there are natural laws of the universe and how that food affects our bodies. So, do we want to eat food that will help our body to function in the best way, help our cells do what they're supposed to do, help our bodies heal? That's what loving yourself it looks like in a healthy way. And it's honoring your hunger cues. Okay, am I actually hungry or do I need something else? And it's giving voice to other things inside of you besides just food. Food is important and it's a wonderful thing, and God gave it to us, and we see it used for celebration so many times, and we should be able to celebrate it. But it also isn't something we should always indulge ourselves with, because then it is unhealthy.
Yeah. How does a woman find a balance then between like my husband loves ice cream and I come to realize that I get as much satisfaction out of saying to him, "Can I just have a bite of yours?" And I'll just have one little spoonful and I walk away and I'm like, "Wow, that was really satisfying." But I really don't actually want or need anything more than that. I don't need to go get my own bowl, but I haven't deprived myself of being it's not like I'm, building this internal resentment up inside of like, "Man, he gets to eat all this ice cream and he never gains any weight," which is totally true, but, and I'm over here working so hard to maintain my weight, and I never get to eat that. So for me, I think the way that I sort of made my peace with the fact that I have a different body, and metabolism than him is just I can have a bite or I can have 2 bites, and that's enough. Because what you said about cravings coming from emotional needs, if 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 I need more than that, there's something else going on. 1 or 2 bites satisfies that craving for that sugar. I don't need to go get my own bowl. So how does a woman find how does she find that balance? What do you recommend?
Yeah. Well, when I work with women on a one-on-one basis, the first thing we
Mhm.
do is we do look at what is healthy nutrition, because
Mhm.
we've been told so many different things. So the baseline is understanding, and a lot of women that come to me already do know that. But there are certain things in the food industry that, they like to sneak different chemicals in our food, and they sneak things here and there.
Yes.
And so we sort of look at, okay, what do we need to watch for? What are the harmful substances and what they do in our body? And so we kind of set a baseline with nutrition, first of all, and figure out where everyone's journey is going to be different. Everyone's coming from a different place with a different background, different life experiences. But once we sort of establish a baseline, then we can start, it sort of opens the door naturally to see, okay, what are the struggles that you have? Are you dealing with more cravings, or are you dealing with more wanting to refrain from eating because for you, restrictive. Okay, but is restricting really loving yourself? Is restricting giving your body what it needs? So we kind of look at that, and I incorporate a lot. I do believe in Holy Spirit. I believe in the ability to pray and ask the Lord to just come and be with us and show us what we need. So some of my sessions involve just inviting Holy Spirit in, and we pray and we ask the Lord to kind of reveal what's going on under the surface. What are the things that we cannot see? Because it isn't me. The Lord knows my client better than I do, and he knows what they need, and he knows what they've been through in the past. And sometimes it's a thought or it's a belief they had about themselves from childhood, and it comes up. And as we begin to work through that, things begin to shift, and they begin to learn, oh, that's why I'm making these choices. It's because of this. And almost always there's an incident. It's something somebody said to them. It's a belief they had about themselves, or something someone said started a lie in their mind. And then we go from there and we start recognizing the truth. And a lot of us have core beliefs about ourselves that we're not worthy, that we're not good enough, that we're not loved, whatever. And so finding what the person's core beliefs are can also be really helpful and instrumental too.
Absolutely. Let's talk about alcohol. Alcohol is and I'm not talking about alcoholism or people who even abuse alcohol per se, although there is, we could talk about that. I'm talking about alcohol, the use of alcohol in terms of people unwinding at the end of the day, and yeah, they could stop, but they don't want to. And the finding that healthy balance, because so many people struggle to find this healthy balance um, in why they drink and how much they drink, and then the caloric intake that comes with alcohol, and because they're empty calories, they're not. It's not fueling your body in any way. What do you? How do you address this issue with women? I'm just curious, because certainly I see a lot of women my age that at the end of the day they really look forward to that glass of wine. I'm one of them. I really look forward to my glass of wine, but I as I'm talking to him, I'm thinking, okay, is there some underlying reason for why I think I need that has nothing to do with alcohol? So yeah, I'll shout and then talk.
I feel like that kind of piggybacks on the previous question you just asked me, and I'm glad you brought it up because there's something else I wanted to say, but it fits perfectly. And we are so busy. We are so busy. A big part of it is taking time to slow down. When we take time to slow down and we take time to be present with ourselves and with our loved ones, which I'm going to come out and say, I personally loved the pandemic for the stillness that it brought. And the ability to slow down. And a lot of times I find myself wishing we could just have another shutdown. I don't want people to be harmed or sick. All, but I would be okay with more stillness is my point. And we all need that. And when we take the time, we can start to notice, how is this making me feel? I've never heard anyone say, man, I drank last night 2 glasses of wine, 1 glass of wine, and when I woke up in the morning, I felt amazing. I've never heard anyone say how good they felt in the morning after drinking a glass of wine. I've never heard anyone say how good they slept after a glass of wine. It might help you fall asleep, but you don't actually sleep very deeply. And so by taking time to just notice, how is this making me feel? When I talk to women who have stopped drinking, it's usually because I realized it wasn't making me feel very good. It wasn't doing anything for me. Almost all of them say that. So a lot of it is just awareness. We need to learn to check in with ourselves. We need to learn to be aware of our bodies, of ourselves, of our emotional needs, of our mental needs, of our spiritual needs. And most of us, we're running around, we're busy, we're going from one thing to the next. We're taking on other people's problems. Some of these things I do. We're dealing with so many things, and it becomes I feel in a lot of cases it becomes alcohol can become a mechanism to cope and to kind of soothe ourselves. And I believe if we took more time to rest and check in and nourish ourselves, body, mind, and spirit, we wouldn't need so much soothing like that.
I think you're saying something really, really important. We eat, we drink, we do other things that aren't always healthy for us, because what I see as the therapist is a lot of people who are running away from their emotional pain. They don't really want to sit in the pain. I actually had a client in the other day who actually happens to be another therapist, and she acknowledged to me, I don't want to sit in the pain. But you have to be willing to do that, to have the awareness that you're talking about. You have to get still. You have to look inwards, and you have to ask yourself some deep, hard questions. And uh, the answers will come. If you're seeking God, God will give you the answers, but they don't come overnight. As you said, it's a journey, and God gives us pieces as we go along. But you have to be willing to look. You have to be willing to ask. And there are thousands, if not millions, of people who they don't want to look.
Yeah.
They just want to numb.
Yeah.
They want to numb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to stop numbing ourselves, whether it be alcohol or whether it be scrolling on our phone or whatever. There's so many mechanisms to numb ourselves.
Yeah.
And that is really doing a lot of harm to ourselves. And if we stop numbing, you're right. We do recognize our thoughts and how bad they might be. We recognize how we're feeling. We recognize our pain. But the only way through is to go through. Like the only way to the other side is to go through and recognizing it's okay to not be okay. It's okay. It's okay to feel crappy. It's okay. We don't have to have it all put together. It's okay to just say, God, I am broken and I need to just be held.
Yeah.
But see, that's where there's a disconnect even in understanding God's love, because we sometimes don't know how to sit in that love. Love is it's revealing. It reveals things about us we don't want to know, and that can be offensive. Love can feel uncomfortable because we might feel unworthy. But love can also be extremely nourishing and healing. But to sit in that place requires surrender. And a lot of us don't want to surrender.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we could do a whole nother episode on surrender and how challenging that is, because we are very self-reliant, and our society really pushes us towards self-reliance and independence, and you can do it, and it's all within you. And I disagree with that, because where's God in that? If we can do it all, if it's all within us, then we don't need God. So surrendering, from my perspective, is the acknowledgement of, I can't do all this by myself. I don't have all this power within me to come to all the answers and to do all this healing. I need God in my life. I need God's presence in my life, and I need God's healing power. So surrendering, just letting go of, if self-reliance was really a true thing, then why are we such a messed up world? I mean,
Exactly.
clearly we don't have all the answers within us. So yeah, I think the first thing we have to acknowledge is, I don't know why I'm broken, or I do, but I don't know what to do about it, and I need help. So that is a really good segue to, how do we send women to you? Do you just work with women, by the way, out of curiosity? Is that your audience that you work with?
Pretty much. Yeah. I have a second component of my of what I do on the health side that works with cellular health and inflammation. And in that arena, I work with anybody.
Yeah.
Children, men, everyone. In my coaching practice, I work with women. Yeah.
So what does your coaching practice look like? Is it like a 6-week intensive or 12-week intensive? How does that work?
Yeah, my one-on-one coaching is 6 months. It's a
Oh,
6-month
wow. 6
commitment.
months.
Yeah, and the reason why is because it takes time to heal our bodies. It takes time to heal our mind and our emotions, and I find that 6 months is really the point of when something becomes a habit in our lives. It takes a little while to unwind things, and it takes time to uncover and um, I've really enjoyed working with women for 6 months too, because we get to know each other on a deeper level, and we get to
Relationship.
you build a relationship, and I feel like when that happens, you can go deeper and more healing can take place. So it is a 6-month commitment, and then we meet twice a month. And I'm also available for, texting or support in between. But that's the basic framework, is twice a month for 6 months.
And is there a curriculum that you have them follow?
I don't, not with one-on-one coaching. With one-on-one coaching, it really is customized to the person. So yeah, with whatever they need. Generally the first few months is working on diet, kind of figuring out some goals that the person might have, strategizing a little bit, finding what nutritionally works for them, because everybody is different and everyone is going to react to different foods. And so we really work on just establishing a nutritional baseline. Then after that, we go into more, so all of that with the nutrition is secondary food. Those are the things we put in our mouth. From that point on, we transition and do more primary food, which is what we were talking about mostly today with our emotional health, our mental health, our spiritual health. Those are all primary foods. We might look at what all is going on in a person's life, their stress, life changes. Are they satisfied at their career? Are they finding fulfillment? A lot of other aspects start to come up, and we pretty much will hang out in that space the rest of the 6 months. And then,
Awesome.
yeah, and I'd love to start some group coaching as well. And the group coaching program will have more of a curriculum that's set in stone, just to help keep the group on track. But
Sure, absolutely. So the best way to get a hold of you is at your website, heatherjamison.com.
yeah, on my website, and I don't have it posted on my website, but for the month of September, I am providing free coaching and a free meal plan for anyone who wants a session. Then the qualifications for that are just, I have different nutritional products. And so you buy a product and then you'll have free coaching or a free meal plan. So that's going on for the month of September. And the way you access that is just, you can contact me on my website.
Yeah. Okay, on the website. So we'll make sure that the website link is in the podcast description. Any last thoughts, Heather, as we wrap up, just about, I'm sure there are women out there listening going, well, whatever they might be thinking. Again, I've never met a woman who doesn't struggle with some aspect of this. And I've worked with incredibly beautiful women who still are very distorted in their thinking about their body, all the way, to the other spectrum of women who are considerably overweight but are very comfortable in their bodies. So it's an interesting spectrum. But any last thoughts, any last words of wisdom?
I think I'll just leave you with this. One practical step that we can all take wherever we fall is to work on being more kind to ourselves. We tend to be our own worst critic, and we tend to be so much harder on ourselves than we would be on another woman. So I like to visualize myself as a young child, or my daughter when she was younger, and how I would speak to her is how I should speak to myself. And
I love that. Yeah.
when we practice speaking to ourselves that way, we become less much less condescending and much more compassionate, which is a really good start.
I love that. I love that. That speaks to a workshop I'm actually working on called Growing Myself Up. And it's all about connecting with the the emotional and reactive sides of ourselves that are very childlike, and learning to soothe those parts of us that are wounded and reacting out of that woundedness. So yeah, speaking to them as though you're speaking to a child, I think it's really, really key. Heather, thank you so much. I hope women do reach out to you. I hope that they find their way to you, because I think you have a lot of knowledge and understanding, but also just compassion, having walked this journey yourself. So, and that's huge. So thank you very much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Debbie. I really appreciate it.
Ladies, that's it for today. I'll see you on next week's episode. Don't forget to get your free guide to the 10-step relationship rescue roadmap and any other freebies that interest you. Just look at the drop-down menu at the top and find the freebies tab, and away you go. I'll see you next week.